if you get the perfect takeaway with the handle and the club head, you're establishing where you have to get to at pre-impact. The only difference is how much width is changing from like the takeaway being 5 inches outside in the takeaway with the butt end to then to the inside of the lead leg at pre-impact. When you actually address the ball with like the real club, you just point it down like this, the 45. So the club, instead of being vertical, is like this.
Got it.
And then everything we do is exactly the same relationship relative to our chest.
You don't have to go to the range. Like if you have a bad relationship with your golf club, guess what? Therapy's now in session.
That's
Understand that the golf swing is 90% hands and arms. It used to be, like back in the 20s and 30s with Harry Vardon and Henry Cotton and all these guys, they were saying that it was 90% hands and arms. Where did that get lost? Like why? Why did we lose? How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Cause and Effect podcast, where we introduce the cause and effect relationships that exist in golf in relation to the hand to handle to club relationships. Episode 28, crazy. We're just like running through these now. Got our compact clubs here. If you have your compact club, follow along. We just had our second drop yesterday. It went really well. Thanks for all the support we got.
Yeah.
It was much smoother this time around. We had our new website, no like bugs on it. Like everything went, if you like compares drop 1 to drop 2, it was like, oh, so much less stress for me and for the team. And yeah, everybody did really good. So yeah, we're super excited. We're building out all these clubs right now, and they're going to be in everybody's hands very soon, in your claws very soon.
That's right.
We're excited for like Masters Week and having this like in your hands when everybody's watching golf like during the Masters. So it's like, wouldn't you want to just have like something in your hand and work on your swing while you're sitting in front of the TV for what's probably like 8 to 10 hours.
And not going to bash your buddies or the lamps or something.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Knock over your beverage.
Yeah, you and your buddies could do like a little drinking game where it's like, hey, let's hit the foam ball with the little like compact club. Yeah, don't hit a real ball with it. It's in the disclaimer.
Wiffle balls and foam balls, I think will be fine.
They're fine. Yes, exactly. But real balls, we don't recommend it. We'll release the blooper. I said I was going to do that in the last episode, but these are beefy clubs, man. They feel like a real club. We're going to get to this more in kind of our segment with test drive, where we're actually test driving this thing today. We got some with our test drive segment. That went really good last week, though.
Yeah.
With the Super Speed, shout out Super Speed.
Yep.
We got a lot of good reception. People like that we're kind of mixing it up a little bit, not just like sitting here like professors just talking about the swing for like an hour straight. It's like, whoa, it's like a lecture. It's like, okay, let's mix in a little more fun and different segments. So we're gonna have our pinch perfect segment, talk about Kitayama, have test drive, and then it's a big week for golf. I mean, you got the Players this week, the flagship event, I guess you could say, for the PGA Tour. Just the course is in pristine condition. Top names. I mean, everybody's playing really good golf at the top right now. Rahm, Rory, all these guys. So it's going to be a really awesome weekend. Arnold Palmer went really good this past weekend. That's a tough course. Like they said, that set up like a major with as dry as it is and as windy as it is. They were like, this course is brutal.
I think that most people that watch the Arnold Palmer Invitational will look at it and see, or they're kind of like looking forward to seeing the guys that were in the leaderboard in the Arnold Palmer, how they're going to do in the Players. Because I don't disagree that really like the top players are going to still be up there because they're at the peak of their game right now.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, a few guys like started playing really well in the first 2 rounds and then kind of had a little bit of problems in the last few rounds. But Kitayama really just played awesome and Steady Eddie. I mean, it was the first time that really he was able to go into the last day with a lead and then actually ended up winning the tournament as well. Yeah. And the way he won was also really cool too.
And a cool dude. Like everybody just seems like everybody likes him. You know, it's like,
well, it's cool how they gave him his nicknames, you know, of the project, you know, because of his high school days, and he didn't have the best, you know, start in his freshman year. And then like the team was trying to like help him out because they were like, they really liked him. And now he's on the PGA Tour. It's like so cool. Yeah.
Those guys are like, man, maybe I should like focus a little more attention on my own game and not Kurt.
Right.
But shout out Kurt. We're going to talk about him in Pinch Perfect because we're going to talk about just his pinches and how he does like his move, and he does a lot of really good things. So does the other guy in our Pinch Perfect segment. But we really just want to jump right into it though and just talk about how if you're kind of watching us and you're seeing us in the chair and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to start like getting outside and playing golf soon if I'm in the north, or if I'm just like in warmer climate and I want to go like work on my golf swing at home. How can I sit and like watch this podcast and actually learn how to actually improve my golf game outside, or like when I'm actually in golf posture?
Yeah.
And that's what the theme of today is really going to be.
Right.
Is it's really about the concentrating the pressure away from our body with our hands to create what we call like the functional unit. We talk about this all the time, but then taking that functional unit and connecting it to a club, preferably a compact club.
Yeah.
So you don't break anything. But it's like, yeah, this is really just an understanding of, you have to understand how your hands are working relative to your body.
Right.
Then once you bend forward, guess what? It's the same relationship.
It is. Right.
So we're going to really just walk you through all that today. Jonathan's going to kind of talk a lot about the width of the swing, the depth of the swing, and just walk us through like, what are we achieving when we're actually sitting in a chair working on our golf swing, and how is it going to translate? Because people want to make sure like, okay, if I'm working on my swing in my chair, it better translate, and it will.
Right.
This is why.
Right. Absolutely. So the first thing is, if we look at it from our 2-point process we've talked about with how we addressed the club, we want the club to be vertical, right? And the point of that is that it allows us to get proper extension of our hands away from our body, lock in the functional unit, and then from there, we do the 45 degrees down with the fingers like we talk about. So really, when you're in the chair, it's like if you hold the club vertical like this and you do like the windshield wiper drill or something like that, that's perfect for just doing that. But if you really want the realistic feel for what's going on with the club, when you actually address the ball with like the real club, you just point it down like this, the 45. So the club, instead of being vertical, is like this.
Got it.
And then everything we do is exactly the same relationship relative to our chest, away from the body. And that's really the biggest benefit, is that everything we're doing right here in the chair, the arms away from the chest, is the exact same relationship as when you get out of the chair and you go and address the actual club to the ball.
Right. And that's why we stress posture so much, because we want people to make sure that like, hey, you've got like your back flat right now. When you bend forward, it's got to be the perfect bend so you can still keep that same relationship.
Exactly.
If you don't bend forward properly, you get too much knee flex, too vertical with the spine. It's like, now you're trying to feel your same like stretch away. And it's like, whoa, I can't get to the ball properly, or I got to like slouch my shoulders.
Yeah, it's like, we're not like starting off like this, or we're not starting off like this.
Yeah.
It's like we have the club vertical straight away from the sternum. That's the main, connection point.
Yes.
And then it's 45 degrees down. Here we go.
Yeah. So it's just taking, basically you're keeping the same like pressure point here,
pushing away
with the push pressure away from the body. And then you're just taking your fingers and going down to the ground, but you're not losing that push pressure.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes.
And that's so important too, when we talk about like creating pivot points. Let's talk about that a little bit, because that's such a key thing with when we're sitting in a chair, or even if we're like working on our golf swing at home and we got like a confined space. Another benefit of the compact club is really, it's just allowing us to work on these pivot points for the club to pivot to the top, pivot back down to the ball, and then pivot back to the follow through. Can we talk about the pivot points a little bit? Because that's something that you hear like, oh, the pivot point. It's like everybody thinks pivot. They think like, oh, my body's pivoting. It's like, well, the club is pivoting, and that's what's actually pivoting our body and allowing us to stay stable. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So Ethan mentioned earlier about the width and the depth in the swing. So it's a perfect time to really add that in. So what the pivot point means is that the lead hand and arm are the main like post of the pivot point for the trail hand arm to work around. Okay. So we have like a claw pivot point, basically. Or a functional unit pivot point. So when we go back, we've talked about how we want to get the butt end of the club approximately 5 inches outside the trail leg when the club is parallel to the ground, and the club shaft, when you think of club head to handle, should be parallel to our toe line. Okay.
So the stretch right here is what we call width.
Correct.
That's getting the handle
pushing away
from the golf ball. And we're doing this by how? How are we getting that width?
So we're pushing with our knuckle pads, especially the bottom two, down and out away from the body. So when we start off with the club vertical like this, you're naturally establishing that pushing away. So if I didn't go the 45 down and I just took the club and went straight back like this and pushed, this is what the club would look like. If we blend the twist in the back, all of a sudden look where the club goes.
Oh, got it.
So that's how it's blended to like break it down into,
that's a
individual categories.
I like that.
Okay. Yep. So basically for that first pivot point, again, this is the takeaway. So again, you get the 5 inches outside the trail leg, and then from there, the club head is parallel to the handle. And then the next pivot point is basically at pre-impact, where we go to the top, we come back down. The butt end is now at the inside of the lead leg. The club head is again back parallel to our toe line. And then from there, when we go to post-impact, butt end of the club is approximately 5 inches outside the lead leg, and then we're back to parallel. So those are like the three main pivot points of the swing.
Okay.
And again, all that means again is the ways that the trail arm is working around that lead arm at those 3 points. Like those are the three main points of reference that really are going to give you the most benefits of your golf swing. You look at any tour player, they're doing that the best in their swings opposed to amateurs.
And what is that allowing us to do, like with the actual club? That's how the club is working relative to the handle,
so
basically?
It's basically how we lever the club back.
Okay.
We lag the club head behind the handle, and then how we release the club head around the handle.
Got it. So the pivoting action is really like how this is working around this.
That's right.
Okay, got it.
So pivoting, like pivot points equal lever, lag, and release.
Oh, okay.
So
that's
like
cool.
there's like a lever pivot point, a lag pivot point, and then a release pivot point. Yes.
Okay, got it.
So that's what we've talked also about, the three parallels, and it's the same thing. It's like to get the club into the parallel position in the takeaway,
yes,
get it back to parallel at pre-impact, and get it back to parallel at post-impact, you have to have the pivot points.
Yes. Okay, got it.
So one of the we'll talk about this later, but like the chicken wing and stuff, like these are basically the problematic issues with not creating the proper pivot point in the backswing, being able to create it here, and then also at pre-impact, and then also at post-impact.
Got it.
So we can avoid a lot of these common issues that we see with all, amateur golfers. And by just understanding the basics of how the lead and trail hand work and how they, again, work as a pivot point.
Got it.
To get the club into the three parallel positions.
And you're really just trying to feel like when we're creating those pivot points is we're trying to get that proper width, like we're saying. And what is depth? So depth is
really
how
the handle goes in and out.
Okay.
But really, depth is more of a subconscious thing in the golf swing, because if we are pushing straight back, like if we get the club connect, or if we get the functional unit connect to the club vertical, okay? Again, like I said, if I just go straight back with the handle here, straight back with the handle here, like that is, the handle's not going in and out at all.
Oh.
All that's working is the club head around that, which is technically the length of the arc. That's how that's depicted.
Okay, got it.
But we'll just say that it's like, if we're just doing the parameters that we're talking about, you don't have to think about how much the handle's working in and out. You already have established the connection away from the body. And if you just maintain that connection straight back into the takeaway with the club head working around, then from there, if we keep the pushing of the hands away from the body while we pull up and back towards trail shoulder and then rehinge back towards lead shoulder and the follow through, it's like that is like the handle. It's not a conscious thought about the handle of like where it's trying to go.
Yeah, it's just more the
like keep the pressures.
The
handle depth is going to be controlled. The width again is just controlling the amount it's going away. And then if we work the club head around it in the takeaway and at pre-impact and post-impact, then again, even that, it's like you don't even think about that really.
Right.
Just focus more in about what we're talking about with what we're doing to the handle to connect to it, where it needs to be at the parameter here at takeaway, pre-impact, and post. And the rest of it really is more of an effect.
Yeah, it's more like subconscious.
It is.
Like if you only get like a certain amount of like mental energy to allocate to like getting your swing perfect, allocate it to the things that actually need the attention and energy. Don't allocate energy to subconscious things, because it's like that doesn't even need your attention. Like focus your energy on creating the functional unit, concentrating the pressure against the handle properly, and then just maintaining that pressure throughout the swing.
Yes.
And getting the proper kind of push pull. And so I want to talk about push pull a little bit. That's actually another thing I wanted to talk about, because that's a huge thing that when we had our archive videos for the Compact Club, and everybody's getting the Compact Club's getting those archive videos, by the way.
Yes.
But it's that push pull sensation where you're taking those pressures and you're pushing away, but then you're pulling back with those fingers. How does the push pull like work in a simple way for people to understand?
So if we have the club vertical to start, right? You have actually already activated your push pull in a certain way, because if the club was down like this, you have zero push pull.
Got it.
But if I go up like this, all of a sudden you have, it's called radial deviation, technically like hand terms.
Fingers up.
Yep. Like palms out, fingers up. And then from there, if I like take the club here and if I push down, out, and away from the button and just stretch a little bit more and pull my fingers back at me, this is max push pull. Like that's a maximum hinge. So push-pull is just in a sense, like a way to explain what hinge is.
Okay, got
Instead
it.
of just saying hinge, it's like, okay, well, what is hinge? It's like it's push-pulling with palms, palms pushing out, fingers pulling back.
And that's how we're creating that like L position in the backswing, like we talked about in the last episode, where it's like nobody's really talking about like what's creating hinge, like what is hinge? It's like it's the pushing this way against the handle, and the club head pulling back at you.
Right. And to tie this into the idea of like width and depth, more so the depth, if let's say there's a common thing that we see in golf instruction is that people will hold like a noodle or an alignment rod or a shaft or something at like an inside angle in the takeaway for the student to try to go in with the handle.
Right.
Because
like
they talk
here.
about this trying to create like more turn and everything. But let's just say this. If I go to the takeaway and I go in with the handle like this instead of straight back, and then I try to activate my push-pull. Look at the angle the club head's coming back at me. It's very vertical. And that's a common problem. It's like if you don't know how to reroute the club back to get to pre-impact, it's very difficult. So what we're saying is, instead of going in with the handle, just go straight back. Maintain this connection straight back from address. And then if we get the proper parallel position, is if we push-pull from here, now the club is going to be back on the 45 perfect at the trail shoulder.
So this pivot point is like if we put a circle around like at this spot right here, if we took a circle, your hands, like a circle, the handle and the club would be right inside that.
If the circle goes in too much, then when we push pull again, it's going to skew how the club head's coming up and back at us. Like now it's in front of my trail shoulder. It's not behind it.
So you could almost argue that this spot right here of getting the takeaway right is one of the most important things.
It is. If you don't start off right, how can you, I mean, you're going to have more alterations to get back to the pivot point at pre-impact. So it's like, again, if I go like this in the takeaway, go in with the handle and I'm vertical with the push-pull, I'd have to reroute a lot more to get back to the parallel at pre-impact. Or why not make your life easier and just get the perfect position here, parallel to the toe line with the handle and club, get the proper width. Then from there, as we come back down, it's just an easier transition, less manipulation, and then it's an easier ride to get to the third parallel.
Right.
If I go like this and reroute, it's like, yeah, I can do that. But again, like, why have to like make that more of a transition? Jim Furyk made it work, kind of. Matthew Wolf in a certain way. But I mean,
like,
it's just
for the average golfer, it's like
hand-eye coordination and like to do that is like ridiculous. So.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have time and you don't have to go to the range and you can just sit at home and practice your swing, then just get it as perfect as you can get it.
Make it simple.
Like try to get the perfect functional unit at this setup. Try to get the perfect takeaway so you can create the proper plane in the backswing. And then you can get the proper lag in the downswing. And then now you're in a great spot at pre-impact to deliver the club at the proper quadrant of the ball, make a good divot, get the good heel to toe relationship. It's like by getting the takeaway right, you're eliminating like 85% of things that could actually go wrong in the golf swing.
Well, and you're also establishing, and if you get the perfect takeaway with the handle and the club head, you're establishing where you have to get to at pre-impact. The only difference is how much width is changing from like the takeaway being 5 inches outside in the takeaway with the butt end to then like to the inside of the lead leg at pre-impact. So it's just the forward action is the only thing that changes. So one benefit too with the compact glove, we talk about the windshield wiper drill. So if I hold the club vertical like
this did really good on social media, by the way. Everybody loved this piece
and
of content.
This is really a genius drill, because if I don't move my hands laterally and I just go to parallel like this and then back to like where we start, which would be impact, there's post impact. All we have to really add to this is the width, which is just stretching the handle back. So it's like I go to here, stretch it back to inside the lead leg, and then let it unwind.
Got it.
With a little bit of stretch to where it's 5 inches outside the lead leg.
We might have to add that into the archive.
So instead of windshield wiper like this, if we go the 45 degrees down like this, do the exact same thing. It's like here, stretch, get back to the inside lead leg, let it unwind. That's how we do it. Once we get out of the chair, it's the exact same relationship.
I'm going to do a demonstration of that like in golf posture this week, and I'm going to do a piece of content on that because people need to see how that looks like in golf posture.
Yeah, because that's it. That's really the importance of the windshield wipers. It's like the perfect gear effect of what is perfect, of how the hands stay stationary in a sense, and how the club head works around. Like this is in a sense, like the big picture and a small picture. And then now again, it's just understanding like once you get the club head in the correct alignment to the handle, now it's just pushing it back and stretching it. And then from there, we just stretch it back to where it needs to be, lagged at pre-impact. And then from there, once it unwinds, we just maintain that proper stretch, and you have literally the base of your golf swing.
I love that.
That's it.
I love how you just described that, because it's like you don't want to just like sit here and like, oh, hit the ball. It's like, no, you got to get some width, because width is just more like momentum.
Width creates stretching of the arms, like a rubber band idea, which creates speed and distance. Like I could sit there and just go like this and hit the ball. You'd be surprised actually how far you could hit it just with that. But if you stretch it back, you're building momentum. And then that naturally is going to like escalate the amount of speed that you have with this gear effect. We've talked about gear effect speed, pre-impact to post-impact, and letting the hands and arms unwind properly. And again, width is really the only thing that is like the other variable.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Right. And one of the big things that we're seeing too, with just the benefits of working on your swing kind of in this confined space, is really just understanding that you don't have to move your body so much.
Right.
Like you don't, like if your sternum is like, we'll say this, your sternum, right? Like the middle of your chest. If you just focus on that center point and just rotating around that, the club is moving you from that position, right? Like walk us through that a little bit, because that's so key.
Well, in the actual swing, if we think about it, like just imagine that I'm actually up staying over a golf ball.
Yeah.
If I stretch the club back, the 5 inches outside and get the club here, how much has my sternum actually moved? It hasn't.
Right.
Now, as I would go to the top, I would keep pushing away and then letting the club head pull up and back behind my trail shoulder. So realistically, because the club's momentum is coming back at me, it allows my sternum to actually stay centered, and it would almost allow my body to feel like it's almost turning like this, where it's like not moving laterally.
That's
like
that
this.
Like draining the water thing that we did, right?
Because if I went to the takeaway like this and I got the perfect parameter and I just kept pushing the club head straight away at Ethan like this, I would go with the club, right? But if I allow the club head to come back at me, all of a sudden it's like it allows me to stay centered because the club is working around me.
So you're basically following the momentum of the club head with your body?
It's like the classic idea of swinging in a barrel. Well, if you want to stay in the barrel, which is technically like the chair, it's like we have to let the club, like we stretch it away here. Initially, we can go to this parameter and takeaway without, again, moving.
Yeah.
But from there, as we go up, that's the tricky part.
Gotcha.
But if we keep pushing and then pulling back, the club's going to keep us from moving. Then from there, if we lag, if I'm pushing back down on the button, down and out until the club gets parallel to the target line, 4 inches, or just like inside the lead leg, then from there, what's my trail showing? It's going to work under, lead shoulder's going up. I'm still in the barrel. Now from here, if the butt end stops and we get the trail arm going from bent straight, keeping trail wrist cupped, release to post impact, it's like the pushing action here is, again, pushing my body back, staying in tilt. So I'm still in the barrel.
Right.
And it's like, and if you can understand those basic ideas of how to stay in the barrel, it's like really the added ideas of like going to the full hot position and all the way to the full finish position are more of a subconscious reaction from doing these basic positions of the swing correctly.
It's just about getting the proper like chest extension, really, to like lengthen it. Well, but you really don't have to like move out of the barrel. Just like increase the chest extension a little bit more. And by chest extension, it's just more just like feeling like if you had like a laser right here, when you go to the top, you're trying to like shoot that laser up as high as you can. But yeah, that's what we want people to kind of understand, is that we got ripped apart in the comments on that one we did with the draining the water, but it's like
that's really
kind of what
the
you
problem
want to
was.
feel,
I think is that because I was looking back,
it
made it seem like I was more like stacked and stuff. But to be honest, like that's really what is considered like a centered rotation to the top. Like you might see some tour players, you know, when they go back initially, they're really stretching and you'll see them kind of load into the inside of lead leg initially.
Yeah.
But as they go up to the top, you can see, because when the club head comes back at them, the weight of the upper body like starts to transition towards the target.
Right.
Like there's no pro golfer that's literally stuck on their right side with the upper body and then trying to clear and then drive laterally through the ball. Like that just doesn't actually happen.
But that's what people like think a lot of people were commenting on the post are like, you're teaching a reverse pivot. I'm like, well, for one, like reverse pivot is the body going this way and the
hips are actually going laterally away from target and the upper body is going towards target. It's like, no, the hips never go that way and the upper body going that way.
Correct.
That's not what we're doing.
And that's why it's so important too with establishing that proper like pivot point with the push pressure, because it's controlling that sternum position. But if you're just floating your hands, it's like, well, how are you going to control your body now?
Right.
So you're using your hands to actually control your body.
It's almost like if you imagined if you took the like from your waist high up and you cut this in half, okay? the bottom section is controlled by, like, the way it's going to move is controlled by your push pressure. And then the way you work the club head around that is like the top section. So it's like if I push like this, it's like, okay, my core is activated. When you talk about people talking about activating core, that's actually really what it is.
Right.
It's like a string here to here that's like being like taut. And then from there, it's like if I work the club head up and back, now my shoulders, in a sense, like this second upper half is going to then be controlled. So it's like that can now stay centered. Whereas again, if I push here and I just kept pushing out like this, it's like now the upper half is going to work. The lead shoulder is going to be pulled away.
Right.
Trail shoulder can't work up and back and in tilt. And you're going to be, again, like stuck at the top to where coming down, you're either going to have to move laterally to hit the golf ball, or you're going to be hitting a lot of fat shots and just inconsistent contact.
Yeah. So really what we're saying, and the whole theme of this whole entire podcast, is just understanding that we're just trying to concentrate our pressures in a certain way against the handle relative to our body. That's it. And that the setup to create the functional unit, we're trying to maintain that same like stretch. Like Jonathan was saying, if you took like a string and attached it to like your sternum, it's like you're trying to just feel that like tautness where you can almost like strum it. It's so tight. But it's like you don't want to lose that, because if you lose that, now the trail hand is like, it needs the lead hand pivot point. It doesn't have anything to work against. But it has nothing to work against now. So now coming in the ball, it's like now you got to be perfect with how that trail hand works, because the lead hand's not doing its job. So it's like, get it right here, get it right in the takeaway, stretch it to the top, maintain it, boom, boom, make your life easier. And that's what all we're seeing with a lot of these tour players. And really when we look at like Kitayama with our Pinch Perfect segment, here's the new band member of the week for the characters. They're looking at Kitayama, they're like, okay, like pretty decent like grip, right? Like his pinches aren't maybe
pinches
perfect,
could be a little bit more pinch,
like,
but he keeps the club in the pinches perfect throughout.
Let's talk about Kitayama a little bit. Let's do it.
So he has like a more neutral grip. So we'll say like instead of perfect pinch like this, just a little bit more separation like that.
And like we said, when the more weaker your grip is, the more your thumb's going to be separated away because you're on your palm more, right?
So this I would say this would resemble where he's at with his grip. But the one thing that I really liked about his swing is...
So where is he there? Like he's pushing with the trail palm against lead thumb knuckle?
Oh, of course.
Like, okay.
Well, we know this because when we look at in his swing, his functional unit, like his locked elbow, swing triangle, are never breaking down. He keeps perfect extension as he goes back, keeps the arms a little bit more out in front of him when he goes to the top, and then he has a good lag, and he maintains perfect extension when he comes through. So even again, maybe that he doesn't have the most perfect pinches, he is keeping the club in those, like in that formation of his pinches perfectly.
So he's keeping the elbows locked.
So he's pushing. The push so what we're talking about with the pushing and the proper pulling, he's basically blending that in the right way to be able to maintain his functional unit.
He's got a great pivot point to take away.
It's very good.
It's really
Everything's
good.
really good about his swing, actually, to be honest. I mean, I didn't see really any flaws. Like, he doesn't move laterally at all. You don't see him, like, trying to do any unique kind of moves. There's one thing he does when he starts his backswing. I notice he kind of sets the handle forward a little bit. And I think that's, like, we see that with a few tour players where...
Like that Davis Thompson, remember that?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and of course, we know Jack Nicklaus. But it's like, but, like, that kind of, like, allows him to push against the side, like, trail side of the handle to like go back, and then they just keep pushing against that all the way throughout the swing.
Got it.
Because there was no breakdown with his elbows at any point.
Which is so key when those guys are under pressure like that. It's like if you're just relying on like your body being absolutely perfect and not having push pressure, it won't hold up.
Correct.
It will not.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing with like a common theme with a lot of these really good players is that they all are pushing against the handle about as good as you can. Like I really see a lot of like Homa in Kitayama, like with that push. Might not be perfect
totally
with the claws and the pinches, but boy, are they
that push
like
pressure secures it into what they have with their pinches.
And maybe that's why they predominantly sometimes hit a fade too, because they're not really getting like the full benefits of how the club's working around the handle.
With the
they're just so like locked with that unit that they're like, okay, I'm just going to control the swing with like
the
this
palms
and the palms.
The palms pushing.
And that's another guy with our Pinch Perfect segment who has basically the perfect trail hand claw, but probably one of the worst lead hand claws we've ever seen. Like Lobster Claw City, population, Terrell Hatton.
So, I mean,
we like Terrell.
Yes,
I mean,
for
how
sure.
can you not? Like, he's just like he's like one of us. Like he gets mad when he plays bad golf and throws clubs and swears. And it's like, oh, I can relate to that.
Sure.
But man, he is just, his lead hand is not doing anything really.
Right.
I mean, his trail hand's running it.
So the lead hand, it's pretty unique. So it's like his lead hand would look something like this. So there's really no pinch here. But the weird thing is that his trail hand is perfectly strong and he has a perfect pinch at his trail shoulder.
Yeah.
So it's like lead hand, we'll call it mini lobster, is going like basically like up at his, trail eye, and then trail V again at trail shoulder. And then the interesting thing is when he goes to the top of the swing, everything's really good, keeps good extension.
Pushing,
He's like lagging the club to pre-impact really good. But then from pre-impact to impact, like it's decent. But then after impact, it is one of the worst like lead arm movements as far as a collapse
ever seen.
I mean, it's almost like Tommy Two Gloves, or I mean, almost like Spieth in a sense. But like I've never like it's just weird how he just lets off of it. I get it, like
just
the energy's delivered to impact. I mean, what happens after impact in a sense doesn't have a effect in a certain way.
But it does.
I do though believe that it does, yes, because if you are letting off a little, if you're letting this happen. If you let off a little too early and the trail hand's not pushing hard enough, like if you're relying solely on your trail hand to make up for anything that your lead hand's not doing,
it's stressful.
It's just going to become a problem, or you're going to have issues where it's like you could be playing great and all of a sudden it's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like why all of a sudden am I hitting shots, heavy or thin, or just directionally it's not going where it needs to be. So yeah, I mean,
maybe we could help Terrell with his temper a little bit if he just got that lead hand a little better. If you could just get that
lead hand to match, I mean, not saying you have to go stronger, but just even if it's neutral, it's like, but just get a better pinch because the pinch will help to keep the lead arm more locked and keep the functional unit more intact.
Yeah,
which then will just again guarantee more so that you're going to be hitting shots more consistently and over. I mean,
the trail hand claws like looking over the lead hand, like, huh. Like, why are you not like matching me?
He's like, I'm doing 110% of this work, and it's like you're only giving me like 50.
It's really similar to like what we see with like Spieth.
It really is almost the exact same thing.
I mean, just a perfect trail hand and a lead hand doing nothing.
Exactly. Like if the trail hand wasn't doing so much, then really I don't think you could be a tour player.
Which is
and we've seen
crazy.
this as a common denominator too. Like
absolutely.
You have to have a perfect or a really good trail hand pinch in formation and usage of it, especially when the trail arm goes from bent straight from pre-impact to post, keeping the trail wrist cup. That's what all tour players are sharing in common is that one move.
See, I feel like for me, like I use my trail hand really well, but my lead hand, I feel like I'm like Terrell. Like I'm really not using my lead hand as well as I could. And that's one thing I've been working on a lot with my compact club is I'm really just feeling like I'm pushing like against that butt end of that club and my lead thumb is just really like glued against it. And then from there, I feel like my trail hand's got a way better pivot point this year to work around, which is just going to help me with my tempo, creating that proper takeaway. Because you look at me at post impact when the club's parallel to the ground, it's like, what are you doing? But it's like, if you don't have it right here, you're not going to have it right at the takeaway.
Right.
Definitely not going to have it right at pre-impact.
That's right.
And then post impact's just like, post impact's all you need to really know to like, oh, wow, like you're not doing anything.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's why sometimes like when I'm doing those drills for people, it's like, it's hard for me to, like when you do that one where you stopped it just outside like a post impact, you stuck it right there. Mine like kicked up because I'm not pushing down.
The concentrated pressure is really good.
And but the compact clubs helped me so much with that because
understanding
I'm just like right here. It's like, it's like I'm listening to what the handle's telling me. The handle's like, hey, look at me at post impact. Like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like, okay, like I'll push against you better here. How about that? He's like, all right, but like push against me better here too. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. And I'll continue to listen to this whole group, and we got some cool stuff coming with that, with like the whole relationship with you and your golf club, because really that's like what the compact club is really like creating for everybody. So it's just creating like the proper relationship between you and your golf club, and it's a good segue into test drive. You saw in our last episode we did our first week with test drive where we got sent the squeeze and we tested out the squeeze, and I thought we did a really good job with that, and we got some good feedback. And but we got some cars that we're working on ourselves that we think are really cool. And this is our first car that we're pulling out of the garage.
That's right.
And it's the compact club.
That's right.
In partnership with Super Stroke Grips. Shout out Super Stroke.
Yeah.
We got a link in the bio, actually, if you want to get a little discount.
That's right.
And use our code. But it feels like a real club, which is something that this isn't like a toy. Like this has a really good feel to it. And shout out our other guy in our company, Jeff. He just does a great job with building these out. And he kind of birthed this whole idea. And he's just done a really great job with executing kind of what we had in mind with when we said, hey, we want a club that we're going to hold in the podcast and help people understand like how to create the proper connection to the club. Right. And I feel like we've nailed it, and it's just been a really good team effort. So
absolutely.
Shout out Jeff.
Yes.
But now this is starting to get in more people's hands, and we're starting to get some really good feedback. People are using it at work. Winslow, the dog, had it on his dog bed. He approved.
I loved how he had his like arm almost over it too.
Yeah, like don't touch
this is mine. Like, get out of here. It's like my bone.
Yeah, John, hopefully you got one of the new from the second drop because Winslow might have taken yours. But it's just really becoming a useful tool. It has a ton of benefits. And one of the big benefits is you can really work on your swing anywhere.
Right.
You don't have to go to the range. Like if you have a bad relationship with your golf club, guess what? Therapy's now in session.
That's right.
And it takes place on your couch. It takes place at your work. It's anywhere. And it's just, this is such a useful tool. And I want to brag about this a little bit because I'm really proud of what we got here. And I think it's going to help a lot of people, especially with our archives that we have coming with it.
Yeah.
That's really what brings it all together.
Right.
And our OG members have already got a sneak peek to that.
Right.
So shout out all the club members. But let's talk about it a little bit more. I've been using mine a lot. You use yours a lot too.
Yep.
And what do you think's like the biggest benefit?
It's just the simplest way to put it is it's the most convenient and really beneficial way to learn and train your golf swing anywhere, anytime. That's really it. Like you only need a certain amount of space to be able to swing. Like you can sit again in a chair. You could be in your office. You know, if you're traveling on business and you want to take some swings in your hotel room, you can go in your luggage. Like, I mean, it's just, it can be with you anytime as long as you have a space big enough to support this.
That's a really, I didn't think about the traveling thing.
Well, that's a big thing. Really like business people in golf, like always want to be able to like work on their move when they get back from their hotel or before they go play. It's like, okay, well, if I've got my archive videos, and that's the benefit. Like if we just launch this thing without any training about how to really use it,
it would still be
good. But at the same time, it's still not going to be as beneficial or near as beneficial as if you have the archive videos of what we're doing, because we're teaching you how to use this thing to really benefit your game, especially like windshield wiper drill, lead hand only, understanding the twist, how understanding the push pull, breaking down all the things that we're needing to do in the golf swing, but doing it right here in front of you with this guy. And again, you don't need a big space or anything, because it's funny in golf, like you'll hear all the time, like people will say, well, you know, you can't do this indoors, so you need to be able to go to a range or something. It's like, well, this is all we need.
Yeah.
Just shorten the thing up. It's like, and now we're good to go.
Right. And make it feel the same, like feel similar, like make it have a good heavy
exactly
feel
the same
to
with a realistic grip. It has a real shaft. It has like a realistic size head.
Yes.
And it's like, that's all we really need to understand what we're doing with our claws and our functional unit to the club, and then how they're working throughout the swing. Like we said earlier, if we start vertical like this, this is the main connection point. Whether you have your normal club or this guy, all we have to do, 45 degrees down. Now everything is exactly the same.
Yes. So once you're training with your compact club in your chair and you're like watching golf and it's like, all right, I'm going to stand up now. Well, guess what? You still can in your living room, at your office.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to like, well, let me clear like some space and like move like the kids out of the way and move the lamp. It's like, no, like just stand up and just mimic what you just did in the chair.
Right.
And this will be the best way for you to train your golf swing because it's slow motion.
Right.
When you have something right here like this, you can work on slow motion swings and just really getting a feel for like, oh, okay, I'm really concentrating my pressures in a certain way to get the width, the depth, the club dynamics. It's just the best way to do it. So I mean, I sit at my desk all the time and I grab this thing like more than I grab my phone.
Right. Yeah, it's like an addictive toy as well. But when we think about the archive videos that we're going to be launching, like we're going to add some more to the ones that we already have.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about like claws only, like getting your claws and what's going on. It's like slow motion. So it's like tick, 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 tick. Then you add the club with it, and it's like tick, 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 tick.
Yes.
Tick, tick, tick.
That's so true.
Tick, 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 tick.
That's
because the reason
there.
is because if you can do this, you're helping yourself understand what's really going on in slow motion, which in slow motion, then you can understand what's going on. You can feel it, visualize what's happening in faster motion. If you're not learning how to do these things in slow motion right here in front of you, and you're just going to the driving range, you've never done this, and just trying to swing like full speed and trying to figure out what's going on, you have really no clue, and you may never actually have a clue. So it's like, if you really want to have a chance to really understand this game, make it somewhat simple and easy for yourself, I mean, really just start off slow motion, claws only, then with the club, with the functional unit, and just understand what we're saying, doing it really slow and like seeing everything happen. And you'd be surprised after just doing like 10 reps a day, even like just how much this, like the familiar like ideas of like what's going on with the hands to the club head, and just like then you grab the real club and you're out there hitting balls, and it's like, okay, like I'm going at fast motion, like I can actually feel what happened because I know what it looks like with my short club. Like I can actually tell where my club face is at, or I can relate the feel to what's real. And that's where people again have really always failed. With like, you know, golf, because like the first thing normally like a new golfer wants to do is they want to go grab a driver and see how far they can hit it. And it's like the worst thing you can possibly do, because you're going with the biggest club and the fastest speed and you have no chance really. So it's like we're going the opposite route, and it's like grab the compact club, learn the smallest move first, then build. And also you're going to also have the short game down too. So that's another huge benefit, because really to become a good golfer, you have to be good from 100 yards and in. Like it's better to learn the game from the green to the tee than learning it from the tee to the green. So, because again, everything is translatable. The smallest swings in golf relate to the exact same things as the biggest swings in golf. So if you have control of the little guys, you have the best control of the big guys. So that's really, again, another huge key with
this. It's a really cool too. I was just thinking about this, where if you're a beginner and you're like kind of intimidated with like going about like wanting to learn the golf swing, this is the best way to do it, because you could buy this compact club, learn the grip, learn the entire golf swing without even like leaving your house, and literally like in a day or so, or seriously. Like and like just go through the archives, and it's like that's not intimidating at all. And then you go to Top Golf, you go somewhere with your friends, and it's like, wait, you just picked up golf? It's like, yeah, but you have your secret weapon at home. You don't tell anybody yet until you show them up at Top Golf, and they're like, okay, like what's your secret? And then it's the compact club. So one thing too is over my years of teaching with people, it would be I wish I had this thing, because to be honest, I remember so many people I had that had like, they were just not familiar with how the golf club would need to work and how their hands need to work at all. I mean, it just was not anything they ever done in their life. So the most like common thing I seen with the worst problems was people that would like take the club back and they would go like this, and they take the club straight out away, and they would just be coming in at the ball like this. If you could just sit them down in the chair like this and say, okay, all we have to do is this, this, and this, and say, now I'm going to sit there and watch you do it like 20 times in a row. Then I'm going to give you a real club and hit a golf ball. I would actually bring out a chair, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, just sit down and like hold your golf club out here in front of you and just do this. Because it's like, I am like escalating your improvement, opposed to just having you stand over the ball without like, because then you can move freely and you're like thinking about all this crazy stuff or doing your natural movements. It's like, all we have to do is this and this. And I did see the best improvements ever from doing that, because it's like, it's a different environment and a different idea of like where you need to be and then what's going on. And then you can take these simple little actions, because they're so easy to do actually if you really understand them. But again, getting over the ball with a real club and all the, you know, variables that can go on with your body movements, whatever, it just makes it so much more complicated. It's like, you're not really drifting into all these scary places that a lot of people, when they're getting into golf, are drifting into with what the body's doing. And like, you don't have to worry about all these things, because if you create the functional unit and understand how to like use it properly, you're eliminating like all of the bad side of like golf that people see when they don't learn properly. It's like, it doesn't have to be as hard as people are making it. 95% of the golf swing, in my opinion, is connecting your functional unit to the club and just getting the down, the takeaway pivot point to here, and post impact. I agree. That's 95% of it. The rest that goes on to the top
and then after post impact, that's really 5%. And it's going to be easy if you just get these keys right. So where all golfers are really failing and making this game so much more difficult than it really needs to be. You're going to eliminate frustration. You know, if you have like a significant other, your relationship will improve with them as well because they're going to be happy because you're happy and not hating golf and like, I have to go play with my friends again tomorrow. It's like, I played so bad today. And I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, like I got to work on my swing.
It's like, yeah, I got to go to the range for like, I'm going to go hit like 5 buckets. It's like, oh, gosh.
Yeah, you'll be able to stay at home, work on your swing.
It's just so much easier in so many ways. It's just,
Yeah, we're really excited about this. And we're just gonna keep kind of making little improvements, have some different attachments, some other training aids that are gonna fuse with it. Wink, wink.
So real quick, and like part of this too, I mean, okay, so when we think about the few things that, you know, are like the cons of the compact club, one is that because it's shorter, the shaft doesn't really flex like a normal club. But realistically, it doesn't matter. If you control these like pivot points that we talk about, the shaft is naturally going to, when you go back, it's going to flex back. It's going to stay flexed back when you do what we talk about to pre-impact. And it's going to unload properly and release and unsnap, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
And that's it. So it's like, so yeah, you don't have that realistic idea with that. So the second one is that you can't hit a real golf ball. That's the only other thing. Right. You could hit a wiffle ball. Just don't try to like hit down on the ground hard with it.
Yeah.
You know, down the road, we might try to
beef it. We're continuing to beef it up.
Eventually put a real metal head on this thing, but it's just, this is more of a training tool. And just trying to build awareness, because when it comes down to it, hitting the ball is more of the effect. The ball is in the way of this. And we're actually considering trying to figure out like a training idea of a ball that will be on a pedestal.
We're gonna.
So you can sit here and just actually hit it, and the ball will like spin around properly to explain like your path and
dimples
stuff.
Just like sitting here like floating in like a foam dimples. And we're just like sitting here because really, I mean, if you can do that and deliver that club to the ball, that's difficult. Like if that ball's floating right now, I bet if people tried that, they would miss it or like hit the outside part of dimples. Like that would be a really good test for people. It's like, oh wow, like I got to really like concentrate like how I'm driving the butt end of the club or keeping the trail wrist bent, going from bent to straight with the trail arm. It's like, you got to be really precise. And then when you bend forward, it's like, okay, I just did this, like hitting a ball floating. Now it's just sitting down there. It's like kind of eliminates the fear of like, okay, I've already done the actual thing of hitting a ball. I'm just like hitting it off the ground now. So it's not as like scary.
The key thing with making sure that the ball hits the center of the face every time, whether it's with the compact club with our ball idea or the real club, is making sure that we connect properly to the club with the functioning unit, get that proper tautness established. We have the proper down. Then from there, keeping the proper tautness throughout the swing will ensure that the club face is going to meet the ball in the middle every single time.
Yes.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's
the
guarantee.
So yeah, go get one of these. They're available in the bio. Everything's linked in the bottom. We just wanted to keep this really just short and sweet for you. Like you don't have to get too crazy with just worrying about like, okay, what's actually like going on in the golf swing? And like, do I have to worry about all these things? It's like, no, just keep it simple. Go get your compact club, get a better relationship with your golf club. Okay. Because your relationship with your golf club probably needs to be improved. Okay. Looking at what your golf ball is going through, it can probably vouch for us and say that you need to improve this relationship.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're really just trying to mend this relationship between you and your club. This is the best way to do it. Go get this. Shout out Superstroke Grips.
Yeah.
It's just a really good tool, and it's just going to help a lot of people. We wouldn't put our name or anything that we're doing behind anything that we didn't believe in, because we really just want to help people. That's it. It's why we do all of this content. Why we sit in front of this podcast and are really just like desperate to just help as many people as possible. We used to do all the time in our last job, 2,000 plus lessons a year. Like we know what we're doing. Now we just kind of get to do it our way. And what we think is actually the most beneficial for you on the other side. We appreciate you guys so much. Like we say it every episode, but we really do. And the fact that you're supporting us gives us the ability to work on things like this and help you guys more, and just creates more avenues for us to just fix golf instruction. That's our mission. That's what we're here for. We thank you for watching, listening, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Yep. Thanks.